Hey everybody, welcome back to Northernlion Plays Binding of Isaac, where I lose a lot of runs. Apparently, I'm in a tight spot as far as Isaac performance and skill goes, but we're gonna work through it together. See today, AXAS DMCA. Oh no, the Digital Millennium Copyright Act. Scourge to all YouTubers, and probably I'm sure it's relevant in other industries. Not that I would know, but excuse me. Not that I would know, but I'm imagining. You know, sometimes you like Google search something and it's like some of these things have been taken down due to Digital Millennium Copyright Acts. And I'm like, hey man, I just want some muesli. Alright, turns out this run is not gonna be that hard. Originally, I was like this, you know, in terms of stats, in terms of attributes, we were looking a little bit underpogged. You might not be familiar with the modern Twitch parlance. Pog is an adjective, can also be used as a verb, but it's an adjective referring to the degree of excitement or power or skill or adrenaline generated by any given thing. So you can, something can be Pog, i.e., wow, dude, when you played Dark Souls Randomizer, it was Pog. And then you can modify that. It could be big Pog, it could be little Pog, it could be over-pogged, pogged out of your mind, enrolled in a semester of Pog University, etc., etc. See if we can find the second secret room. But you can also be Pog, you know? I haven't figured out how the past tense works quite yet. We're still working the kinks out there. Anyway, today is it's still Thursday. And I gotta tell you, it's an exciting Thursday for me. This morning, when I recorded the first Isaac episode, I had no idea. I had no idea that we would actually beat the Dark Souls randomizer today. And I do have to say, first off, thank you for your support on the Dark Souls randomizer. It was a ton of fun to play, and we'll be playing something in the same vein as that. Maybe even just a second run-through of it at some point in the future for certain. Hopefully not too far in the future. Now, I have to say, and this is what I was going to say earlier, not all of the bosses were very difficult at all. Just to be honest with you, I thought there was a chance. I really wanted a little cash. Come on. Come on. You got some cash for me? No cash for me? We might be able to get lucky on this. Ooh, it's a little spiced. Yeah, that was probably ill-advised. In hindsight. Because, like, Black Candle is really good, but I guess we'll just fish for something that's on sale. That's not going to help. I guess it doesn't hurt because we're still at 7 cents, right? So maybe you could be a Joker card. You are not a Joker card. We wouldn't have bought that anyway. Now it's just morbid, like I gotta know. I think we'll buy one more Spirit Heart. Sorry, a little voice crack as well. That's how you know I've been working hard. If you ever hear the voice crack, you shouldn't go, ha ha ha, his voice cracked. What you should do is go, this guy's been working hard. For both his bottom line and for the enjoyment of the audience. Voice got a little raspy. But we did beat the Dark Souls randomizer. What I was gonna say is we did get lucky with the bosses. We did beat probably the two hardest bosses in Dark Souls. On this stream, we beat Manus in the Asylum. Because, you know, it gets randomized. The positions get randomized. We beat Manus in the Asylum, which, you know, is a tight arena for a huge boss. And we beat Artorias in the Crystal Caves. So I was pretty pleased with that, because I don't know if we've ever, like... Legitimacy is a weird concept in Dark Souls. In a game where people have beaten the game without being hit by anybody at Soul Level 1. It's weird to say, like, some kills are legitimate and some aren't, but every time I've ever beaten Manus, it's essentially boiled down to, like, put on the heaviest armor you have and just smack. This time I actually had to learn his attacks, which is a landmark move for me. And same with Artorias, honestly. It was a good stream. I had a good time, but now we're here knocking out an Isaac episode for sport, really. It's a very good series of items to get right out of the gate. I think I'll look for a second secret room really quickly. It won't be in here, so I will not look for a second secret room quickly. Instead, no, it probably won't be there. There could be a regular secret room right there. Okay, never mind. We'll be moving on then. I'm excited. I gotta tell you, I don't record too much on Thursday night, because normally on Thursday nights, you know, Kate and I are doing our duo stream, but she's feeling a little bit under the weather tonight, so I thought, you know, I'll take part of the night off. Mostly because I'm ahead in videos anyway. I could do something productive, like domestically, you know? Clean out the garage. That's a joke, we don't have a garage, but a man can dream. Perhaps one day the day will come. But, you know, something of that ilk. Do some meal prep or something. But Thursday nights are really nice for me. Because, you know, Saturday is my day off. Obviously, Thursday and Saturday do not border. But they share a border with Friday. And Friday is just, like, pretty chill day for me, usually. It goes by real quick. I wake up, I go to the gym. I curse myself for never developing grip strength as a priority, and as a result, my deadlifts are very disappointing. But we're still working on it, and Rome wasn't built in a day, right? I come home, take a shower, record a few videos. Sinvicta goes, hey, do you want to do GeoGuessr right now? And I go, yeah, let's do GeoGuessr right now. We do GeoGuessr. Oh, this is interesting. I don't even know if this works, but I'm interested to see it. I don't know if I've ever seen this room. Maybe once. Can't rule anything out, but... Ferp? Okay. Very interesting. But at least we got another trinket if the first one doesn't work for us very well. Because, I mean, I can't imagine it doing anything, right? Now, you gotta admit, it's dangerous, but it's also bombastic, right? The Curse of the... Not Curse of the Tower, sorry. The Anarchist Cookbook plus Scatter Bombs. Like, as long as we have HP, we can let it fly on that. After I record with Sinvicta, I record... Basically, I look at whatever series... Sorry, I got a little builder's bar stuck in my throat. Can't believe I got hit there. I told you don't normally hear me on Thursday nights, because I'm resting my voice a little bit. But, I record whatever needs to be recorded, whatever's most urgent. And then it's Friday night. The great thing about having a day off, and this is why I recommend it to all streamers and they never listen to me because we're a stubborn bunch. But one of the great things about having a day off is that it doesn't just give you a day off. It gives you like a day and a half off. If you don't work on Saturdays, psychologically, your Friday nights are better. I believe it 1,000%. We are going to try that. Because a normal, you know, I know what it's like. A weeknight, it doesn't really feel like that's your time. That's like time you've borrowed from the office. Because you're not, I mean, you are free to do what you want, but at the same time, you can't do anything really that would compromise your ability to be at work the next day. Sorry, Ipecac, it's just not for me. Ooh, baby. Could have come back as Dark Judas there. If we get Magic Mush, I'll consider it. That was not the right way to approach that. But anyway, you know what? On a real day off, you're like, that night, you could do anything you want. So what do? Usually, go to bed in a timely fashion so that I don't screw up my sleep schedule for the rest of the week. But hey, it's my choice that time. On those days, it's my choice. I exercise the power. I had a feeling. Yo. Well, now I will go to the shop. We'll take this guy just for sport. Very weird but great run so far. No one can deny the greatness. Can you deny the weirdness? I don't think so. So this is a bit spiced, okay? But I have a game plan. We're gonna Sacktown this life to come back as Dark Judas, which has cost us a lot of HP. But it only gave us 7 damage up, but That's not nothing. So I think you then Yera. And Sinvicta and I were talking about this. I think it's nice, and more than nice, actually. I think it's like the right thing to do, to just use Yera early. I think too many people, and when I say too many people, I really mean me, save it for too long and then never use it and yeet it for something else. When in reality, they would have just benefited from using it in a situation like that. So I think that turned out pretty well. But yeah, it's, you know, I was naive to the effects of a 7-day work week for a long time. That's gonna hurt. Everybody knows that it's like, it's not good. But I was like, maybe it's not that bad, because in the average 7-hour work or 7-day work week, I probably only work slightly more than people work in like a 5-day work week. Nah, it's busted. Psychologically, it's bad. I think 1 day of relative rest is important. If I'm building out my recipe for happiness, which I'm still figuring out myself, and probably will be until the day I die, at least 1 pure day per week of rest. And rest doesn't necessarily mean doing nothing productive, it just means not doing your job. It's a luxury, I'll admit. But it's a luxury I'll take gladly. That's a long snake. This is guaranteed that boss owned a Nokia phone in the early 2000s. You know what I've been thinking about lately? At what age do you give your child a cell phone? It's one of those things that, you know, I didn't have to grow up with. So it was never like, there was no discourse on it when I was young. It was like, at what age do you give your kid a phone? What do you mean? Like a home phone? Surely you don't mean one of those car phones you could buy at Radio Shack. It's like $500. I wouldn't know. You'd rather give them like 4 gold bars. I guess, like, truth be told, I know there's parental controls, but I've never in my life looked at the parental controls section of any device in my entire life. I've just never had a reason to do so. Hold on. This is it's a bit spicy. It's a touch spiced. I was hoping. Honestly, that's pretty sweet. And I mean, truth be told, you know what you do now? Grab, and that's sack alter now. We definitely use it. Dark bomb, verp, use, health up, and then just keep it going. That'll help. I don't want to go too deep here, but to get 3 plays instead of 2 is worth something. Come on, dude. It's getting a little... It's a little much. Okay. Okay, he at least paid out. With caffeine pill? Are you insane? Should we have done that? No. Is it funny? Yes. What do we do now? That's a great question. We should definitely check for HP. Because really, like, if we get HP, there's like a 99% chance we'll live through the next room. If we live through the next room, we're getting... Let's go. A spirit heart immediately. So was this worth it? Probably not. Was it fun? Oh, yes. Extremely so. But I don't know. At what age do you give a kid a smartphone? It's weird, because like when I lived in Korea and I taught in Korea, the kindergarten students had smartphones, and I thought that was insane at the time. But the older I get and the more I think about it rationally, I think, as opposed to just relying on the idea of like, well, in my day we didn't do that. I'm like, that makes sense, you know? If you're... But it's also, to be honest, it's kind of like a little bit more... There's a cultural difference. Like in Korea, the kids... Like, most kids were dropped off at school by their parents when they were that age. But there were some kids, you know, they're 6 or 7 years old. They're like riding the bus and the train by themselves and stuff like that. So yeah, I think you want your kid to have access to a phone, so if they get in trouble or they get lost or something, they can call you. But on the other hand, do you also want them to have unfettered access to the internet at all times? That's something, I think it's something you have to reckon with, right? Because the internet, I love the internet. I do. And I hate the internet. But not as much as I love it. I'm pretty positive about the internet lately, and I've varied from time to time. The most negative about the internet that I am is when I see otherwise nice people get sucked up into, like, ignorance, basically. Like my grandma, super nice lady, posts a lot of memes on Facebook every day. I want to be clear, I love my grandma on a human level. Sometimes, some of the memes, little offensive, just gonna say it. And I'm like, Grandma, I've never heard you talk like that before in my life. She's being radicalized by, like, misleading Facebook posts. That's when I'm mad at the internet. But for the most part, I'm like, man, the internet is, like, incredible. But at the same time, how do you teach your kid how to use something that's that powerful? It's like handing your kid an infinity stone, right? People just head downwards. Like, with the Infinity Stone, if they can bear its power, great benefits may manifest themselves. But if they find themselves, you know, succumbing to the temptation of, you know, the path of least resistance, next thing you know, they're spending... Just forgive me for what I'm about to say. Next thing you know, they're spending 12 hours a day on World of Warcraft. I'm not necessarily saying that that's, like... Well, I guess, you know, to be honest, I'll call it, I'll say what I honestly think, which is, I don't think there's anything wrong with playing World of Warcraft every day. 12 hours a day, I think that will have an effect on your life for sure. 1 hour a day, obviously fine. 12 hours a day, obviously bad. I think there's somewhere in the middle that's where the contentiousness lies. 6 hours a day? I don't know. If you're accomplishing... Well, that's like the DSM, you know, the, like, psychological handbook of, like, well, all mental disorders, but, like, addiction in particular is, like, one of the hallmarks that exemplifies it as an addiction is, like, are you putting off other stuff? Are other avenues of your life suffering in order to make this thing come to the forefront? If so, doesn't mean you necessarily have a problem, I think, but, you know, you might want to consider it. Anyway, I'm sorry, I didn't mean for this to become everybody crap on MMO players. It's not, you know, my wife plays Final Fantasy XIV. Not as much as she used to, for sure, but she plays. And you see it, you know, like, in the conversations that we have, like, some of the people are, like, absolutely gung-ho about it. Like, some of you are probably playing Final Fantasy XIV right now, dude. Some of the people are like, you know, raid night. Unless someone in your family has, like, a medical emergency, raid night always goes on. And then some people are like, I can't make it tonight, just not really feeling it. Different extremes, I suppose. I'm spinning my wheels here conversationally. But I think, like, for people that, if you're, I don't know, at what age, what year would you have to be born in to have always had access to the internet within, like, 100 feet of you at all times? It's not much younger than me, to be honest. Because even I remember, I have, like, an actual memory, not a fake memory, of getting a computer. And it was, like, I think it was a 386, which I'm pretty sure meant that the processor was 386 megahertz, which is hilarious. Was it double-threaded? No, it was not double-threaded. I don't even know. Threading might have been invented, but they might have only used it for targeting computers to, you know, like launch missiles. I honestly have no idea. But anyway, and then like the internet, like a couple of years after that, we got access to the internet. And it's so funny to think back, is like, we got a plan for the internet where you paid, essentially you got a certain number of hours of internet access monthly. And I think we had like 30 hours. It's just such an indication of like how, oh, I screwed this one up, huh? No, not really, not really. That was not bad. It's such an indication of like how the world has changed. Originally, I remember the ISP tried to pitch us on 10 hours a month. And you're like, now, you're like 10 hours a month? The average human being must be on the internet at least like 8 hours a day when you factor in, you know, email, phone, etc., etc. I believe in that at least. This is a little spooky, but it's also very strong. But back then, you know, my parents were having conversations like, 10 hours a month? So what is that? You know, that's like 20 minutes a day? That seems about right. You know, you get on, you check your messages, you Google like cat picture, and then, you know, one of them loads and you log off. What more could you need this thing for? But definitely by like the early 2000s, I was like, everything is steeped in the internet right now. For me, at least. But when I was, you know, in the early 2000s, I was 12, 13, 14 years old. So it's kind of, my parents were like, just let him go, you know. He's raising himself at this point. We're just here to have like 1 or 2 more awkward conversations with him before he goes to college, and then, you know, set it and forget it. I know that I shouldn't say it like that. It makes it seem like my parents were negligent in raising me. But you know how it is to be a teenager, you know. At least in, you know, when I grew up. It wasn't like they just let you be, but it was more like, you know, hey honey, how you doing? God, Mom, I don't want to talk about it, okay? Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind got totally ripped off. It wasn't even nominated for Best Picture. Guys on the Pajiba boards are gonna be cheesed. So you gotta think about that now. Like, when do you give your kid, you know, a smartphone? I have no idea. When they use the internet? Like, let's say they're like, you know, 10 years old. Do you let a 10-year-old access the internet without supervision? I've talked about this before with respect to my nieces, but I'm like, you know, my nieces were playing like, basically like Temple Run knockoffs on the iPad. And, you know, like, I don't mind. It's a touchy subject, you know. Everybody's got different perspectives on this stuff. And I'm coming from an extreme place of ignorance. But I was like, man, I wonder if I had kids, would I let them play these games that are like essentially just designed as a vehicle to serve advertisements? Like, I know that I'm also making a video that on like on a macroeconomic level is, YouTube doesn't see this as like, oh, it's a cultural artifact. Like, YouTube sees this as like inventory, that like, oh, we can sell, you know, like 20,000 ad impressions on it. So it's kind of like, you know, those in glass houses shouldn't throw stones. But I don't know. Honestly, I think you live by the sword, you die by the sword. I'm like, would I let my kid watch YouTube without supervision when they were like 9 years old? Oh my God, absolutely not. Are you crazy? I don't even want to let my mom watch YouTube without supervision, and she's like 54. Yeah, I know, she's young. I know, they had me when they were young adults. That explains why they look better than I do, honestly. It's not fair, but it is kind of cool. Dude, we never should have taken Loki's horns. We're so lucky we got Dark Bum, otherwise this could have been called into question. Just stuff to think about. Generally speaking, I think Facebook should have both a minimum and a maximum age limit on it. Much like driving. I think if you are I mean, under the age of 18, you shouldn't be on Facebook. Over the age of 70, shouldn't be on Facebook. Why? I don't know. Just punishment for ruining the housing market. I kid, but also I'm being very serious. I don't know. Now, what's funny is that when I made that joke, I had to come up in my head with what is the age that is too old to be on Facebook? And I think when I was 20, I probably would have said like 55. But now that's like, it's far, but it's not so far away that it's like mythical. You know what I mean? So instead I was like, 70. But even like when I thought about what a 70-year-old was when I was 20, for example, it was basically like a hollow from Dark Souls. It was like an eldritch creature that is still engaging in metabolic function against all odds. Now I'm like, I don't know, I picture like a well-groomed old lady in like a cable knit sweater. She's doing like Sudoku puzzles, and she's got like horn-rimmed glasses on, and she's texting her kid like, "Love you, sweetheart." It's funny how that changes, because the same thing can be said in the opposite direction. When I was like 17, and I thought of like, oh man, when you're 25, you got everything freaking figured out, dude. Like, you're like an adult at 25. You're mature, you got it all sorted. Now I'm 31, I look at the average 25-year-old, and I'm like, you're like a little baby child. You are an infant human being. You've barely had a taste of the real world, which is not true for everybody, of course. It was true for me at 25 for the most part, to be honest, but I don't think so. Anyway, just stuff to think about. Because my parents had to go through it, right? They were like, you know, they had to feel out things that they didn't grow up with as well. Like, my parents were born in the late 60s, so when they were teenagers, there were video games, but the video games were like, you know, Pac-Man. Nobody was like blowing anybody's head off or like, you know, wrapping their head in a plastic bag and putting a zip tie around the neck like in Manhunt, right? So like, when I was growing up, violent video games, you know, there was kind of like a real debate over like, should we let our kids play these? And nowadays, I really feel like most people, it still comes up time to time, but most people are like, you know, you probably should not let your 4-year-old play PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds. But like, I think if a kid is like 13, they should, like, okay, I'm not part of the ESRB, but I think if you're 13 years old, you should be able to play like essentially any video game. That being said, I'm gonna give you an unpopular opinion, and this is very unpopular in the industry without a doubt, like for people watching this. I don't know, there is something in my head that is like, maybe we shouldn't be letting like 8-year-old kids play Grand Theft Auto. I mean that with the literal definition of maybe, because I think some people are like, violent video games don't cause behavioral problems. And I'm like, I agree, but also they didn't cause behavioral problems in me, because by the time 3D graphics, you know, came out, I was relatively, by the time games could look, you know, relatively realistically violent, I was already pretty much out of the woods. I just think the ESRB is like, it's off by one, you know? Like, mature games should be T games. And it should, you know, at the parents' discretion, of course. But, you know, there was some collateral damage. Like, it's hard to explain, I guess, like, to your parents that you're fine. Like, my mom wouldn't let me play Diablo. I had to, this is a true story. And if you look at Diablo 1, there's violent, disturbing imagery in that game. But when I was 13, I was like, dude, this is sick. At the time, it didn't even register. But, you know, you kind of know you're on the level, and you're like, Mom, I'm not going to turn into an eldritch wizard because there's blood in Diablo. But, you know, she doesn't know that. She's just taking your word for it. That's exactly what a psychopath would say, right? So I waited until she was out of town on a business trip, and then my dad took me to the mall, and I was like, hey, do you think I could get this game? And then he's like, yeah, sure. They had other stuff going on in their life. I'm sure they didn't have a conversation about Diablo specifically. So I managed to sneak it in under the radar. Anyway, for now, thanks for watching. Hope you guys have enjoyed the episode. If you did, click the like button. Obviously, great deal. Of course, subscribe if you want to see more in the future. For now, thanks for watching, and I will see you next time. See ya!